Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dr. Deep State. Today is a short video. I'm going to read from some headlines from around the world and make some connections to In Pursuit of the Metaverse, now available on Amazon. I'm going to leave links below in the description section, along with my personal email, in case anybody wants to talk to me regarding the book and its promotion. So, one of the ideas here that I've been building on, I've been doing several segments looking at censored news from around the world and making connections that these headlines seem to be moving in a sort of direction. So I'm going to just arbitrarily really take a couple stories and then I'm going to read briefly from In Pursuit of the Metaverse. Story here is Irish Lives Matter. I'm not even going to read from the headlines because I think a lot of people have heard about this story. It's a couple weeks old. An immigrant in Ireland attacked a number of people and protests broke out. I think some of the details, this happened in, I believe, Northern Ireland. And um, as a response, there were protests and some people wrote Irish Lives Matter. And there are some interesting connections that could be made, but I'm not going to reach in that way. But some of the obvious ones, it looks similar to BLM or riots over the years in Paris and all kinds of places beyond. And to the extent this was an organic occurrence or manufactured, I'm not so interested in that, or if there was provocateurs heightening the drama surrounding the event. Certainly that might have been the case. I think this famous fighter came in. I'm not good with names, but I think he's also running as a political leader now. So a lot of drama is going on around this. But what's interesting is the backlash. Something that would have been completely benign if it were written 5 years ago, Irish Lives Matter. The response to this, and I think some of this is coming from the sort of UK/ northern end of this, is highly draconian, highly tyrannical, as much as a year in prison. Um, and I'm not going to get into the exact details, but the police and security systems can track you, go into your private mail exchanges. This is just insane. I mean, I don't know what else to say. So I'm going to start making connections between this and the jab and AI. Just it's things that are seemingly unconnected. But the first thing that comes to my mind, I love Ireland. I traveled there. I remember spending some time after seeing the country in Belfast, and this is way back in the day when there was still graffiti, some of it quite marvelous graffiti, and drama in the city that had been there for quite a while, tanks on the street. But some of that seems almost quaint between the pressures building today. And it's not just Ireland, it's around the world. This is just indicative. And it's also indicative, I think, of some of the tyranny that's going to be spreading. And so there's a pattern at place here. Um, but where you see tyranny, you see idolatry. And that's the connection I want to make with that for now. I want to hit on a couple stories regarding data that's come out this week in response to the jab. One of them is from New Zealand. This study reveals that anywhere from 20 to 30% of some batches had this startling death rate attached to them. And that is just, what other word do I use but startling? So this is in the news. I honestly don't know if this gets to the mainstream news. I've seen it in several reports that I was looking over, and it's a shocking revelation. And that comes also in the same week that we get this story over here. In the same week, we get this story from New Zealand, which seems to be pretty well regarded so far. We get this story from InfoWars. And of course, InfoWars is almost a mainstream outlet these days, very well subscribed to, well watched, well read. Pentagon, so when you got that in the title there, Pentagon gives this quite a bit of validity, confirms, again, a shocking 973% increase in heart failures. Absolutely shocking. And I'm not going to discuss right now if this is a deliberate externalization of this information, uh, sort of frustrating the world population to some desired end, but certainly that is interesting. And as far as we could connect this to Ireland, it is this idea that tyranny is being externalized for whatever purpose. But I would suggest when we see tyranny over the millennium, we'll also see a connection to idolatry. So, coming back to the States, we have this story coming out of the New York Post. For those that aren't familiar, it's considered sort of a rag, but it's pretty well read. Um, Top AI experts warn of tech's risk of extinction similar to nuclear weapons and pandemics. And then we have Elon Musk below weighing in. And this name is getting out there quite a bit, Sam Altman, and Chat in his connection to Chat GT. So our last couple stories, we talked about tyranny, and that's this idea that government, or in this case, certain private sectors, are weighing in and pushing the direction of speech and thought, and I would argue a tyrannical direction. Nothing's more tyrannical, and there are a lot of stories like this with AI these days. Nothing's more tyrannical than the idea that artificial intelligence, or you hear this expression a lot, artificial general intelligence, is going to take over the world. I've dealt with this idea quite a bit in my book, Singularity, and there's much crossover with the idea of the metaverse. And that is the idea of the direction of history is moving in the direction of bio-digital convergence. And usually the headlines are pushing the idea that AI is going to get ahead of us and rule the world, and maybe there'll be a good AI and a bad AI that have to face off against each other. One of the themes I suggested in my book, Singularity, was that that's a bit of a ruse, that there's usually people in control of the algorithms that are directing it and directing the stories about how it's perceived. I'm not saying that it's not possible that AI couldn't break away, but I do think with these stories, it demonstrates the tyranny in the air and the idea of manufacturing certain fear. Whenever you see the idea of pandemic, weapons, and nuclear in the same headline, it's pushing some buttons. So I think when we tie this to this overarching externalization that's in the air, it's designed to get us into a thought frame or even a thought prison. That's what I would argue here. But this is a huge story, and indeed, it does correlate strongly with the idea of in pursuit of the metaverse. So at this point, I'd just like to read from the introduction of my book, In Pursuit of the Metaverse. So from chapter 1, in St. Paul's epistle to the Romans, he begins by drawing a parallel between humanity and the image of God. Initially, mankind possessed knowledge of God, but turned away, leading to a descent into existential degradation. Paul explains that God's wrath is revealed against the unrighteous, who suppress the truth. Despite their initial knowledge of God, their thinking became futile, and their hearts were darkened by foolishness. In claiming to be wise, they actually became fools, exchanging the glorious image of God for idols, resembling mortal beings, birds, animals, and creeping things. As they chose not to acknowledge God, he allowed them to succumb to a debased mind. We suggest that St. Paul's analogy resonates with humanity's current predicament and can be understood through the concept of the spectacle, elucidated by Michael Hart, Antonio Negri, and Guy Debord. The Society of Spectacle helps us understand the hidden nature of modern power in contrast to colonial nation states that manage the boundaries of race, geography, language, currency, and cultural tradition. The empire of spectacle is characterized by a network of national and supernatural entities operating under a unified logic of rule. This logic is biopolitical in nature, governing and deteriorating social life from within. It operates through the manipulation of images, media, and virtual reality, shaping beliefs, values, and behaviors. So I'm going to move on and read from the beginning of chapter 2, The Great Reset. In pursuit of the metaverse, millennial dreams, political religion, and techno-utopia explores the World Economic Forum's techno-utopian vision to create a post-human cyborg existence within an exclusively immanent frame of reality known as metaverse. The metaverse, we argue, can be conceptualized through the juxtaposition of the empire of spectacle and the Western tradition from which it spawned. Metaverse operates through the apophatic negation of reality, i.e., being, understood within the prism of Western metaphysics. The project operates through the controlled demolition of Western civilization and the sacred symbolic economy. Metaverse aims to replace reality with a purely self-referential simulacrum of reality, generated through human and ethereal forces, fifth-generation warfare, and an egregore, or mind virus, continually injected into the human population. The utopian attempt to perfect man without grace is the essence of the ontological war of our reality. So, just a few connections between some of the headlines going on in the world today and In Pursuit of the Metaverse, now available on Amazon. Links will be in the description section if you want to take a look at it. Another theme that kind of runs through these ideas is the book of Revelation talks about the image of the beast. In preterist terms, this was going on in the time of Christ's crucifixion. In the culture of the Colosseum, there was the idea of the spectacle. It's the combination between the political and religious powers that had taken control of the minds, hearts, and spirits of the population at that time. So that was the kind of ancient spectacle, and the power over it connected with the idolatry. Christ's crucifixion, I argue, broke that spectacle and brought in a new reality in the world. And that now is going full circle, and now there's a modern spectacle of empire that repeats the same typology, combining the religious powers, the political powers, and we even see especially the powers of the private sector into a recaptivation through idolatry of the hearts, minds, and spirits of the now world population. So those are just a few ideas that I work with throughout In Pursuit of the Metaverse. So I encourage everybody to at least look over the introduction of the book. I will say straight up, it's not something you kind of casually read over the weekend. It's almost kind of an investment. It was designed to be, in my mind, a definitive look at what's going on in the world today and really going deep into the sources of what's happening, this image of the beast that is developing around us. So it's something, it is made to be accessible. Some chapters easier than others. Some parts, if you're good at history, a lot of chapters use that. Some are a little bit more heavy on the philosophy and theology. But I do, not to be in sales mode, but I do think there's something there for everyone. And certainly it's designed so that even if some parts are slightly challenging, if you take your time with some of those chapters, you will be able to get it, I'm pretty sure. So thanks for today. This has been Dr. Deep State. And as always, I hope everybody's doing real well.